Every week, we drop the noise,
drop the stress,
and drop some knowledge.
Welcome to The Drop-In, the college admissions podcast by Decision Drop. If you want to learn more about our services or have Josh and I help you and your family through this process personally, head to decisiondrop.com and check us out.
I'm Josh.
I'm Lisa. Let's go. I love that part. Well, I love when I do that.
I do too. It's like, I feel like I'm going to run through a wall, just kind of like you're a coach.
You know what? I'm channeling my captain of my cheerleading days. That's what I'm channeling.
Well, maybe you needed to be the captain of the United States men's national team, Lisa, because I'm sure they could have used a little let's go, but they went out of the tournament.
They sure did go. And I actually think I could do some motivation speaking. So I'll look into that too. Yep.
You know what? We should add that as a feature to the podcast. Maybe we can get the men's national team to listen. Some of them have to have kids. Some of them are old enough to have college-age kids.
That's
Few
true.
of them.
That's true.
We'll see.
Yeah, let's work on that. Or yes, instead of a hot take or after hot takes, we could have what's our coach's talk of the week. Do we like that?
All right, I'll let you handle that one. But
okay, I'll work on that. I'm adding it to my list.
Yes, but the unfortunate fate of the United States men's national team is not why we're here today.
True.
Although we could have a whole podcast about that, but that's not today's episode. So, Lisa, today we're going to talk about a very important topic that is critical to the college application process. We're going to talk about the personal statement, also known as the college essay.
Right. The one thing that keeps every rising senior and their parents up at night.
Yes. And I think the reason that it keeps them up at night, the reason it's so stressful for students is that a lot of times students think that there's like a secret recipe. If only they could unlock that one topic that would just make everything okay. They think they just find that right story. That's it.
Well, right, because it's that the kiddos, I think they treat it like that one magical answer hiding behind door number 3. Like if they pick the right topic, then suddenly the whole application unlocks.
Yeah, and it's not that actually. So we're going to get into some helpful tips for students and parents today. The essay, it's not about what happened to you. It's about what you do with what happened to you. It's about your story. It's about how you are able to share yourself with the admissions officers who will be reading your application. And we're going to dive into that today.
Right. Which I think is exactly why today's episode, we should call it Show, Don't Tell. I know those 3 words are probably my favorite words. Even students that have worked with me in the past, they will tell you Miss C's favorite words in the whole wide world are show, don't tell. I mean, besides bananas or kiddos, but really show, don't tell. I would say, Josh, when we think about this, I would love to never read another sentence that says, this taught me never to give up. Like, again, I will be okay, I will heal, and I will move forward. But if I never read that sentence again, I would feel like a better person.
The United States men's national team taught me to never give up.
Right? Because I think the problem is it's not the lesson, right? Because the lesson can be true. The problem is that every student says it the exact same way. So the essay has to show me, what are you doing? Like, what did it do for that specific kiddo? And it's hard because I think students, they just panic. And when they panic, they just start spiraling. And I think it's also a good opportunity because this is the one place on the application where a student can actually get to sounding like a real human being.
Yeah, and that's essential to the application. So let's get into this. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so where we want to start, most students, when they sit down to write their essay, I think they really treat it like they're interviewing for a job. And it's like they have to prove something. And listen, I understand it. Students are thinking, this is my one shot for me to sound smart and mature and accomplished and thoughtful and unique and funny and deep and emotionally involved, but no pressure. We know it's pressure and we're doing it. The royal we, everyone in your life, we know we are giving you pressure. I think what you should do though is take a second and sit down and then think about it. Slow down. Try not to impress an admissions rep. Because when you start thinking you need to impress an admissions rep or an admissions reader, that's when you don't sound like yourself. And then they all start thinking, oh my gosh, is this how the essay is supposed to sound? And then you get into your head and it is like a vicious cycle. It's a spiral. And so I think where the essay sounds actually too professional, if you get it too polished, And then they're like, oh my gosh, if it's impressive, then it won't be memorable. And that's not the case either.
Yeah, I think there's this sort of natural is kind of the wrong word to use in this case, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
use it here for just for the
Mm-hmm.
purposes of this discussion. But it's that natural instinct to try to impress, right? And so that's when you have the kids who reach for the thesaurus or dictionary, or they're looking things up on their phone. How can I use a big $10 word? I always tell my students that you're using $10 words when you can be using 50-cent words. So
Mm-hmm.
they try to use these words, and many times they don't fully understand the word, or they don't use the word properly, but
Right.
they're using it nonetheless to sound impressive. And the biggest thing that I heard you say is that in doing so, the student actually you begin to lose yourself in that process, like who you
Mm-hmm.
are. Like, this isn't how you speak. This isn't the language that you use. This is not how you normally write. And so in the students is kind of this catch-22. In an effort to impress, you're actually suppressing yourself, which is actually defeating the purpose of the essay.
Right. Because I think here's the reframe. And this is what I try to tell every student when we're working on essays. Write as if you already trust the reader, not like you're trying to impress the reader. Does that make sense?
It does, but let's break that down a little bit more for students. So what's the difference between those two statements that you just said?
So, when you're trying to impress someone, most people will perform. You reach for the biggest word, the most dramatic moment, the thing that sounds the best. But when you already trust that person, you're just talking to them. You're just having a conversation. You're telling them what actually happened and what it actually meant to you. This is where it's your story. And
Mhm.
that's the version that stands out because the admission reader, they have read 1,000 versions of the mission trip essay and the sports injury essay and the grandparent essay.
Yeah. And that's the thing that really sometimes trips students up as well, is like this need to try to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So a lot of students that we work with, sometimes they will get paralyzed because they're trying to think of something that nobody has ever written about before. The unfortunate reality is that you're probably not going to do that, right? As you just mentioned, admissions officers have read hundreds, sometimes even thousands of essays. So here's the thing. Two students can and probably will write about the exact same topic, whether
Mhm.
it's they play the same sport, they suffered the same loss in that sport, they had the same summer job. But those essays, even though the students are writing about the same thing, they're going to be completely different because the students writing those essays are not the same. The perspectives and the experiences that they bring to the topics are not the same. So nobody else has processed this particular experience or this particular topic that they write about the same way they did. So you can still have a unique flavor to an essay that another student or several other students have written about. So students stressing out or putting additional pressure on themselves to try to find that unicorn topic, that's unlikely to happen.
Right. So I agree. Like, I don't think the topic, it almost doesn't really matter because I think some of the best essays I know that I've ever read, it's not about the biggest accomplishment. It was about a car ride or a family dinner or their favorite stuffed monkey or a part time job, a mistake they had, a weird hobby, a conversation, a routine, a tiny moment that's revealing something real and about them. Because the topic doesn't have to scream, the writing has to let us in. The writing has to let the reader in every time.
Yeah, I think that's perfect to say. I think that when we're working with students and we're trying to help them to pull potential topics out, it's what we're asking them about is like, tell us about your life. Tell us about the things you've done,
Right.
the things you're interested in, the things you've
Hmm.
read or listened to. So there's no secret sauce, as we said earlier. It's really just about finding something that resonates with you, something that you feel really speaks to who you are, and maybe that's something that you feel comfortable sharing with a college. And so what really matters when we get to that is this topic, is this subject, is that what perspective of yours is that showing? You know,
Hmm.
is it a situation where you've had an impact in some way that can be large or even small? What was your thought process in participating in this activity or listening to this podcast or reading this article? How have you grown? You know, if you're looking at a painful experience or a lesson or something that, or a perspective that changed for you, what have you learned? Those are the types of questions that when we're working with students, we're asking them to think more deeply about, because you can pull essay topics out of those things.
I think you hit it the nail on the head, as my dad would say. Your perspective is your superpower.
Yeah.
Nobody else has your perspective, right? So the real question underneath the whole essay is, who are you becoming? That's what helps a college see what kind of human you're going to be on their campus. And no, you're not going to also write this like a polished AP Lang essay. I want you to hear this, students, and I want parents to hear this. I would say 8 out of 10 times we will automatically cut the first 2 paragraphs out because it took you way too long to get to the point. 650 words is not that long, especially if you like the topic you're writing about, and that topic should be about you. So if you start writing something and you don't like the topic that you've picked, or it's extremely hard to write, then just stop. Like, start out with something different. I'm a big believer that just means that it wasn't right for you. And if you want to work with us, we have a brainstorming
Yeah.
session to start this out where we ask
Yeah.
you about 15-ish questions, like get to know you questions. And I even think students are like, what questions are you asking me and why? But I kid you not, every time we come out of that session with at least 3 different ideas. And then again, shameless plug, if you do want to work with Josh and I through this process, please head over to Decision Drop and check us out. But,
Well-timed shameless plug.
thank you.
One of the things I'll say to piggyback off of what you just said is in terms of helping students to kind of use those 650 words, another sort of pet peeve of mine is when students will answer the question, but the first 2 lines of their essay response is repeating the question.
That's my
So,
favorite. That's also my favorite.
I'm always trying to remind students again, much like you said, we want to jump in. We don't need a lot of setup. The setup was the question. So
Mhm.
you're responding to a prompt, a question that's already been asked of you. So you don't respond to the question by starting by repeating the question and then getting into the response. So we just want to really have the students dive into it. So students, parents who may be helping, mentoring students through this process, one thing that you can do to help, yourselves in this process is when you're answering those prompts, don't repeat the prompt in your
Mm,
response. Like just respond,
mhm,
if
mhm,
that makes
mhm.
sense.
No, it does. Mhm.
The other piece is something that you touched on as well. My advice to students is when we're writing these essays, once we do get a topic and we've settled on something and you want to, start drafting it, reveal something about yourself. So the idea is to try to reveal something about yourself through the application topic that's not anywhere in your application. We'll talk more about, transcripts and resumes and those kinds of things, but the essay is supposed to add something new, a new dimension, a new perspective, something that the admissions person who's reading your application hasn't already encountered yet.
Right, because the transcript, they're already gonna see and give them information about your grades, and the activity list, like Josh said, it's gonna already tell them what you did. And the colleges are just not admitting, I know we talked about this last week and 2 weeks ago, they are just not admitting a GPA or a resume or a list of activities. They're admitting a real person. And the essay is one of the few places where that person actually gets to show up.
Yeah. And again, the essay's job, it is not to repeat. It's not to repeat transcripts or things like that. It is really a chance for a student to express themselves. It's one of the only places in the application where the student's voice comes through. Everything else about the application is something about you, something people are saying about you. You have recommendation letters. They're written by other people who are speaking about you, what you bring to their classroom, if it's a teacher, a counselor who's talking about sort of your overall academic experience. Your transcript, your grades are a reflection of your effort and your ability and potential in those classes, but that's not sharing your unique perspective. So the essay is a part where you get to speak directly to the college, university, or the admissions representative who's reading your application to share a piece of yourself.
Right, and I think that's the authenticity piece that we keep talking about.
Yeah, it really is. Lisa, you and I mean, together we have about 50 years of experience on the high school side. Plus, we've also both worked on the college side, and we've read a lot of essays. And I think that another thing that sort of trips students up is they want to stand out. That's the whole goal. How do I stand out? How do I do this? And sort of tying it back into what we were speaking about earlier about the desire to find like that unicorn topic that's most likely not going to happen, but it's also how do you stand out? And really you stand out by being yourself, by really instead of trying to use big words that maybe you don't understand or to try to sound like you're a 47-year-old, polished author who's got 3 kids, a mortgage, and a bad back. College, I don't know why I added that bad back part, but it works for this example. Anyway, the whole point is we want students to sound like and to be themselves. It doesn't matter what your topic is, whether you feel like it's this small, topic that doesn't really quote unquote mean much, but it means something to you. Whether it's you cured cancer, which would be awesome by the way,
Mhm.
or whether you started a book drive on your street that led to a student or a young person on your street developing a love of reading and how that story touched you or something along those lines. Whatever it is, it's yours. and it's
Mhm.
authentically you, and that's what's going to help you to stand out. That's what's going to help an admissions rep remember you is if you're being yourself.
Also, we can add that to our list of, be yourself. That's gonna go on our
We're
hashtag
not
list,
getting
but
we're not getting a
maybe.
t-shirt where
Oh my
no,
god, maybe we're already up to
no.
3. Anyways, I think you should just say that again for the peanut gallery. Like, yes, keep going.
Where where is the peanut gallery? What does
I
that
don't
even mean?
everywhere.
Anyway,
Everyone who's listening, welcome. Mhm.
I so if folks are in the peanut gallery, and maybe those are like the cheap seats or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sure.
so what I was saying was that students aren't going to be remembered necessarily for this topic, monumental or life-changing topic that they were about. They're going to be remembered about what they wrote in the essay and what that revealed about them. And again, that we're circling back to that word authenticity.
Mhm.
That's only going to happen if the student is being themselves and writing about something that's true to themselves and writing in a way and a style that is true to themselves.
Right, because if you're a student listening right now and you're stressed out about the Common App essay, stop hunting for the right story. Start with something real and then dig deeper. The goal is not to cover every detail of your life. The goal is to help understand how you think and what you noticed and why it matters to you. Show us what you're thinking, not just a timeline. I know it's easier said than done, and Josh and I are giving you all these ideas, and we've lived through this, and then we've lived through it again, the 1,000 essays that we've read. Stop listening to what everybody else is writing because they are not you. And especially do not jump on TikTok and see what one person wrote to get into Harvard and to Yale and to Vanderbilt and to Stanford and to the University of Texas. Because at the end of the day, if you wrote that exact same thing, which is what Josh was talking about earlier, unless you give your own perspective about it, if you're copying what they did, it's not going to sound like you, which means it won't make sense to the reader at that school.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges of the college application process right now. And I think social media, unfortunately, helps to fuel this. Students or parents find out a particular path that a student took to get them into name the university. And they just think that, oh, well, if I just hit the copy and paste button on their path, that's going to happen for me too. And
Mhm.
it doesn't work that way. You can talk to a student who got into WashU or NYU, and those might be places that you'd like to attend. And you can say, hey, what did you tell me everything you did to get into the school? The student will tell them, they may walk them through their steps, but the student doesn't exactly know what got them into WashU or NYU. All they know is they
Right.
got an acceptance, right? So
Mhm.
even if you try to replicate everything that they did, that's not you. Copying someone is not authenticity. So even if you try to do step by step and copy what they did, it's still not going to be a truly representative of who you are and what you're about and what the college might be getting potentially if they choose to admit you or not. So that path, that trap can be pretty tricky there, but I want
Mhm.
students and parents to understand that it's okay to seek advice. Of course, you want to talk to people your
Right.
age, people, maybe you might have an older sibling who's gone through this process, a cousin, or maybe just a friend in high school who was a grade above you, and talking with them about, hey, how did you manage this process? Any tips on stress and things like that? So for sure, talk to them about those things, but trying to replicate or imitate exactly what they did to get into a college is not the way to go.
No. Woo! That that was a lot for that segment.
All
Also.
right. Speaking of segments, Lisa, that's a nice
Uh-huh. Yep.
transition. Again, we need to work on the transition music. We got to
I
figure this
know.
out.
I'm working on the sounds.
Yeah.
I know.
So, but we're going to get to our next segment, which is hard truth.
Okay, you
Uh,
go.
so,
You go first.
all right, I'll go. All righty. Students, here's my hard truth about college essays. Polish doesn't equal substance. So I've read lots of essays from students that I've worked with. I've read essays where the students have written this gorgeous prose. It is sculpted and cultivated to a T, and it's told me absolutely nothing about the student. A beautifully written essay that tells me nothing about a student is not a good essay.
Right. Hard stop. I could not have said that better myself.
Well,
And
good.
I actually have one this time. I didn't last week, but I do this week. I'm just going to flip the script a little. And this is to parents. Lock in. For you, and I say this with so much love, so please remember this. Do not edit the kid out of your essay. Your instinct is to help polish it, clean it up, make it sound more mature, make it sound more impressive. But sometimes that help takes the student's actual voice right off the page. And then
Mhm.
suddenly the essay doesn't sound like a 17-year-old with thoughts and personalities. It's more like a 45-year-old person wrote it after attending a leadership retreat, right? So it's
With a
like,
bad back.
Anisha,
That's where they got the
with
bad back from.
with a bad
See,
back. Josh, thank
I
you. Oh, look at
knew
that circle back. Look at that, Josh.
See,
Yes.
I knew there was
Mhm.
I love it when a plan comes together. See, going to those conferences,
Absolutely.
sitting on those terrible conference chairs is where the bad back came from. So, perfect.
True, true. So when you do this, right, the admissions reader, they can tell 100%. They read those thousands of times. So the goal is not to make the essay sound perfect. The goal is to make sure it still sounds like the kid, but just clearer and better organized and more reflective, but most importantly, more them.
Exactly. Parents, let those run-on sentences stay if that's how the kid genuinely thinks are right. I mean, look, it worked for Walt Whitman and Mark Twain.
Right. I mean, let the sentence fragment live. Let the joke that's a little random, let it stay in there. That's the voice. And the voice is exactly what the college is looking for, not your voice, but your kiddos. And yes, we do not want the whole thing riddled with grammar mistakes, but they can have one or two. It's okay.
Yeah, it is definitely okay. Don't edit your kid out of their own essay. All right, Lisa. So we do need to spend some time talking about a very important topic, one that we certainly can't escape, the age in which we live, and that's AI. So it's
Right.
the year of our Lord 2026, and we certainly can't talk about. I don't know why I just sounded like that. I feel like I'm going to deliver the
I don't know. I
Gettysburg
like it. And
Address.
then you made me want to sit up straighter. So yeah.
Yeah. See, yes, four score. No, okay, we're not doing that. Anyway, so AI. So we know that students use it. Parents, we know that you're aware of it as well. Our advice is that using AI to write your essay is not good. It produces exactly those kinds of polished, voiceless essays that we were just talking about earlier. It sounds like everyone and no one at the same time. And it's not simply that we're advising you not to use it because admissions offices might be using some sort of AI detection tool. Some do, many don't. So it's not about getting caught, so to speak. It's really because we don't want you to produce an essay that is not authentic, that doesn't say anything about who you are, and it doesn't allow the admissions representative to learn anything about who you are. Kind of what we were saying before, the polished essay that says nothing isn't a successful essay.
We always tell students this: the essay should sound like the best version of you. That's exactly what you just said. It's not the fake adult version of you. And AI, it can help you brainstorm and it can help you organize thoughts. It can even help you figure out why a story matters. But please don't let it sand down your voice like there is nothing left that sounds like you. The words on that page belong to the same kiddo who is going to show up in September on that college campus. So remember that.
Yeah, and that's super important to note. We are not anti-AI. So I want to make that clear. We're not telling students that AI is evil or is going to turn into the ending of Terminator 2 or something like that. Although, no, okay, so what we are saying is we want students to put the work in. Applying to college is going to require some elbow grease. And if we have a plan, if a student is organized and we take the time to really make sure that we have the time for students to think about who they are and what they want to say, we can go through the drafting process and help the student to produce an essay that is genuine, one that they can feel good about, and one that centers their voice. So again, we're not anti-AI. What we don't want is for a student to get to that point where they're panicking, where
Mhm.
maybe they're not organized and maybe they haven't given themselves enough time, or maybe they don't have a plan. And we all know that when students panic at the last minute, then AI seems like this great reprieve. Oh, I can just type something in to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Gemini or
Sure.
whatever else is out there.
Right.
And
Mhm.
oh, it'll just produce this thing for me. And that seems easy because it takes away stress at a moment of heightened stress. But
Mhm.
when you really take time to think about it, it's not setting you up for the best success in the application process. That's where admissions officers are trying to really get to know who you are if an AI is producing something for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Uh,
Yeah.
yes.
No Terminator 2 storylines. That doesn't end well for us. Anyway, all right, Lisa. Once again, we need that transition music, like lasers,
Yep.
like
Yep.
something like that.
Dun-dun-dun. Yep.
I like mine better. Anyway, so we're
Sure.
in the segment called Drop the Mic. So
Mhm.
Lisa,
Mhm.
the mic is yours. Drop it.
So if you could take one thing from today, let it be this. Your perspective is not something you need to invent. You already have it. It's already in there.
Bingo.
It's in the way you notice things. It's in the way you react. It's in the way that you sense something is going to happen. It's the way you connect dots. It's not your job to chase that perfect topic. Your job is to let the reader hear how you think. And when you trust your voice enough to do that, that is when the essay starts to feel very real.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, students, you are not
Thank you.
writing to impress a stranger. You're writing to reveal yourself to someone who's genuinely trying to get to understand who you are. So give them something real to hold on to.
Right. I mean, if we're being honest, show don't tell isn't always a writing craft. Like, don't think of it that way. It's about trust, trusting yourself, trusting your story, but most importantly, trusting that you know that you are enough. That's what it is.
Nice. That's a pretty good mic drop. Again, we got to get the sound effects so that way you can just
Thank
kind
you.
of, get the audio feedback and stuff. All right, Lisa. So we're going to do this again next week. They're letting us back
Okay.
into the studio.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
we're going to stay on the essay, but
Okay.
this time, students and parents, we're going to zoom in on supplements. So these are the things like the Why Us essay that are
Mm-hmm.
those 250 word short answer questions that somehow wind up mattering just as much or maybe even a little bit more than the personal statement.
3,000%. Because if you think about it, these tiny essays, they're secretly not tiny at all, right? The student sees these 250 words and they think, oh, this is cute. I'm just going to knock this out after dinner. But what? Let's say it's Michigan, right? Asking for a specific college or program essay, or Virginia Tech, asking how you will contribute to their campus. Short does not mean simple. Short means every word has a job. And these essays are specific, and they are one of the fastest ways to tank an otherwise strong application. Or, when it is done well, make it shine.
Yeah. So pretty important stuff. We got a lot to say about it. So you don't want to miss it. Tune in next week.
Right. So remember, we're Decision Drop, making your college journey collaborative, simple, but most importantly, yours. And if you want to learn more about our services or have Josh and I help guide your family through this process, please head over to thedecisiondrop.com and check us out.
Thanks for dropping in. We'll see you all next week.